What is up, Coffee and Great listeners? I'm so excited. We have another phenomenal guest here, and you know what? The key to every great company and great culture out there is a visionary at the top that understands that culture and people are the key to a successful business. And I have Mike Eller with me, president of Populist Cleaning based out of Ypsilanti, Michigan. And I have had the chance to work intimately with Mike and the Populist team for the last few months. And I can tell you what, everything that we talk about, everything that people are looking for, whether you're looking to work for a company or you're looking for advice on how to grow a successful company, Mike is going to talk to you today. It's incredible. I got to witness last month. They had a team call where they brought the whole company in and gave them really an up-to-date status of what's going on, what's exciting going on in the company, and something really, really beautiful unfolded that I don't think anybody expected to happen.
No.
It was intentionally designed. Mike had the leaders give shout outs to individuals that were on the team, but then individuals on the team started standing up and asking if they could talk and talk about how great Populist has been and how great the leadership has been. And so I could keep talking about it, but we're gonna have Mike come on and talk about all of it. So first off, everybody that listens to me knows that I love the entrepreneur story. How did a business start? And it's one of the first questions I asked Mike when we were sitting in his office. And what's the story behind Populist?
Well, thanks for having me on, Jason. This is a privilege. I really appreciate it. I was looking forward to this today. How did we start? So this goes back several decades into the 80s and actually a little bit before that. So my dad and my current business partner, John, who's kind of stepped into retirement here over the last year or two. So my dad and John started this business in the early 80s, but my dad came out of a sort of the corporate teaching environment where he was a musician, composer, pianist, concert pianist, and taught at some high-profile universities around the country. And then his last stop for about 10 years was at Eastern Michigan University, and he was a tenured professor there. And he quit cold turkey because he was so much of a unique individual that he couldn't kind of fit into the corporate mold of teaching. And but he had to put food on the table. So we had a friend, a church friend, John Barfield, who went on to do a lot of things as an entrepreneur. So he went to work for John Barfield cleaning buildings because he had to put food on the table and keep a roof over his kids. And he did that for a few years, and then after that, a couple of years went by. He and John Wagner, business partner, decided to branch out and start their own gig. So they started cleaning some churches, small offices, and it basically became a two-family business. So it was small. We had a couple of anchor accounts, and then built the spokes around that. And it was like that for about 10 years. And so I sort of grew up in it, knocking around and started doing floor work, stripping and waxing floors, cleaning carpets, things like that, and went through college doing that. And then when I got out of college in the early 90s, I just decided that I liked working for myself. I never really worked for anybody else. As a kid, I had a paper route and I was mowing lawns and things like that. So I always liked working for myself. So I got in with both feet in the early 90s. Dad started to have a few health issues, so he sort of stepped aside. And then John and I grew the business from the early 90s to now. And it's been a fabulous run. Things have happened way beyond what I ever expected. So
could you picture back then where you're at now?
No, when you start, it's like you're just winging it. You're flying by the seat of your pants, and you don't know what's coming or going. You just know that you have this job you got to get done for this customer, and then you got to bill them, and then you got to collect the money, and then you got to pay the bills. And oh, by the way, you got to pay your people that you brought on to help you do the work. And so it's just kind of treadmill thing, or the, what is it, the mouse trap, the wheel or something.
Yeah.
And so you're catching the balls as they're coming at you. And then, you get to a point where you have these little breakthroughs where you realize that you need other good people at certain things and you can't do it all. And so, what I discovered over the years was that there's some hard lessons involved. And when you grow up doing everything in the business or almost everything in the business, what's really hard to do is sort of peel yourself out of a lot of things, just to pull back. And I learned that finding really good people that you want to work with, because there's always people out there that you're like, they're a nice person, but I'm not sure I could like live with this person in the office 40 hours a week, So finding the right fit, finding quality people that can do what you need them to do, that you can sort of be married to in the work life, and then letting them do what they do well and just back away and let them perform. I found that's what you have to do. It's not always easy to quote unquote let go of the vine, as they say in EOS, but you got to do it.
Yeah. So you mentioned EOS. I want to talk about that. But what was? There's got to be several people out there that are at that point and they feel like they're doing everything. What was that thing for you that was like, I need help, and we're at a point where I can't do it all?
Yeah. So I know that I remember several spots. It was around $1 million a year. And then again at like 1.5 million. And then we hit it just after we hit 2 million, or just shortly after that. You kind of hit a ceiling and you feel like it's really, really difficult to break through to the next level. So you grow a little bit and then you contract a little bit, and then you grow a little bit and then you contract a little bit, and you're like, I can't get past this bump.
You know, it's a definition for rut.
Yeah.
It's like the visual, right?
Yes. So rut is what it felt like on several occasions. And so, the most recent rut that we really had was back almost 5 years ago when we discovered EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. And I had spent about 6 months researching it and thought, all right, this is something that I really think we need to do. And I was in a lot of seats at the time, so I was doing a lot of different things. And I knew that I couldn't continue to do that. And so we started EOS. Fast forward almost 5 years later, it has brought us a lot of structure, much needed, but not so much that it kills creativity. Mm-hmm. So, and I went from a lot of seats to basically I'm in the visionary seat now. There's one other role that I'm still fulfilling, but we are actively in an interview process with someone else right now that might just work
free
out.
That up.
Yeah. So that feels good.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How do you go about then finding those people? Because I think that's key. I know it's key in so many of like, I can't give this up because nobody does it like me, or, how do I know it's done, or how do I know I want to work with this person?
Yeah. So there's two things. One, the latest point here that you made is like, how do I give this up? Well, what I learned over the last couple of years was that, all right, 80% is good enough. Right? Nobody is ever going to do it the way I would do it, or nobody's ever going to do it the way you would do it, or, the business owner. And so if that's what you want, if that's how you want it done, then you will continue to do it that way. And you won't get anybody else to do it. But it's the old, you go to Big Boy for dinner, not because the food is outstanding,
yeah,
right? You go so that you don't have to do it yourself at home. And, so you find someone that can do a good job, can get most of what you want done in the way that you want it done, and then the rest of the chips just fall where they fall. And you have to be okay with not everything is going to go the way you would want it to go, and you just have to be all right. Well, if I want it the way I want it, then I better be prepared to do it myself, and that's the choice that every entrepreneur has to make.
Yeah. So how do you then define those roles that you need in those seats?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So over the years, all the roles blend together as you're growing. And you're doing a lot of them as the business owner. And then as you get to a certain stages where you've reached, like, for instance, human resources or finance, payroll thing. Payroll is the one thing I never, ever did. And we used to outsource it. And then we discovered that, all right, we could actually do this more cost effectively in-house. And there was someone that was sharp enough to do that, and she took that over. And So the roles become defined over time as you get larger and you realize that there's more for this role to do and more for that role to do. And you start to create those separations. And sometimes that's tough. Sometimes there's change involved with personnel. Sometimes people don't want to give up certain things. Sometimes they do want to give up certain things and they just want to live in one world, of their division or their department. And so creating those things, and again, EOS had a lot to do with helping us define those. It's not about the person, it's the role. What do you need out of the role of HR? What do you need out of the role of sales? And then you go find the person that can bring what you need to the table. And it's different for every business. So, for us, commercial janitorial service, someone with a certain skill set in sales is different than someone that is selling really high-profile medical equipment. So,
yeah, different structures, different business.
right,
Yeah,
right.
we talked about a little bit. I'd mentioned about the culture in kind of that outpouring of what people were saying about the company. How do you shape that?
So, culture is for me sort of there's two parts to this. So I was raised in a kind of an old school environment where you do what you're supposed to do. There's not a lot of attaboys. There's no warm and fuzzy pat on the back stuff. And you when you've done what you're supposed to do, you did a good job. Someone might tell you that you did a good job. They might not.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the world that I come from. However, they have been changing and things they are changing. And so I know that. And there's been some people in my business that have sort of brought that front and center to me over the years and said, hey, Mike, you got to do things a little bit differently. You just can't, keep doing it the old school way. And so as we've changed, I have a deep, sincere appreciation for the need for the right culture in the business. And so I don't know as if culture is my strength. I consider myself to be more of the tone setter. Mm-hmm. I set the tone in the business. But then recognizing that you have to have the right people around you that help promote that culture that is necessary and attracts other people. And we've done a very good job of that, and that's attributable to the other people that are in the business, the other people on the leadership team. We get a lot of employees through referrals. We get work through referrals with new customers. I see these things on discussion boards that I'm a member of, and I see these things in the news about labor issues and hiring problems. And yeah, we all deal with that, but darn it, I think we're pretty blessed for the success that we see. And you saw it on that call. That's one of the things that I don't have very many unique ideas. I got that idea from somebody else. I was part of this group that did these monthly Zoom calls, and everybody sort of got to know each other. Well, the first time I was on it, I thought, well, this is pretty dumb. I mean, why would anybody do this? But then I thought, all right, well, I'll just keep an open mind about this. And so I kept coming back month after month after month, and you get to know people on these calls. They're from all over the country, all over the world. Might be a guy in the next town over, but it's somebody that's on the other side of the planet too. So then you get to know them, and there's some camaraderie that's formed. Well, so in the commercial janitorial business, our employees are spread across the map. We're not under one roof. So we don't have this opportunity to create a company culture housed under one roof. So I thought, hey, let's take this idea of this Zoom call. Let's do this with our staff. And there's a lot of things that we haven't done yet that we still can do with that call, but we're just, it's just one step at a time. And we've done that now 4 quarters in a row. And the last one was really great. We got the best traction that we've ever had. I think it was like 35-40% participation ratio, which was really good. And there was just this spontaneous outpouring of gratitude on the part of or more than we expected. So we have these managers that do these shout out opportunities. And then they talk about core values, and we engage people from the field to talk about core values and the vision of the company, things like that. And so it was during that shout out section that there were several people who have had some hard spots over the last couple of years, family members passing and health issues. And they just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the team and thank their specific supervisors, their area managers who just hung on with them over the last couple of years. It was great. And you saw it. And So
it was one of those things of being on the inside leading up to the meeting, the few weeks of how do we get more engagement? How do we get people excited to do this? And it was called at one point the State of the Union or
State of the Company address,
which did not get people excited.
Right. Like, who wants to come and listen to that? One more State of the Company address, State of the Union address. No, we don't want that.
So you rebranded it a little bit and switched it up, and then got a different level of engagement from people, and it was awesome to be a part of.
Yeah, we put this email out to several people and said, hey, what can we do with this? Let's call this something different. There were a bunch of ideas around. We decided to go with the Populist Power Hour, and so that caught on. Everybody liked it, but there was also a lot of good effort on the part of the managers that are in the field to really talk this up. Get the people engaged. And that's really what it's all about, because now these people are going to come back on the next call and they're going to remember, hey, I had a great little sidebar discussion with Kelly or with Willie and I want to get back on that call and talk to them again, see how they're doing. So that's what we're trying to encourage.
It's super cool. And entrepreneurs listening, there's a couple of things that Mike's saying that you can learn from. The first thing is you don't have to come up with all the ideas.
No.
Get yourself around.
Steal the good ones.
And you know what? You can get good ideas from failing business owners. I've taken ideas from people that came to me for advice, and then they started talking about this thing that we're doing. I'm like, that's a really good idea. Mm-hmm. They didn't see it through. Right. However, I implemented it, and we stayed with it, and it became a successful piece of what we were doing. Yeah. So you can learn from, just be open in these situations and surround yourself around other cleaners, and you can pick their brains and be a part of that, get best practices.
Yep.
But then the second thing is not only implementing it, but if it doesn't work that right way the first time,
change it up.
You didn't give up. You changed it up.
Change it up.
You changed it up. You didn't say, oh, that was dumb. We didn't, we got low engagement this first time. We should just, that was stupid. We won't do it again. You stayed consistent, but you went to the board, you went to the leadership team, said, how can we make this different?
Right.
How can we get more people engaged? And so you brought the team into it, again, bringing the team back into it, and was able to get a different level of engagement.
And the thing that does more than anything else is it encourages buy-in and sense of ownership. And these managers, we all have a little spark of entrepreneurial spirit. That's in everybody. And so it's giving people an outlet to that. And so when you go to the team and you say, hey, this was lousy the last time. How do we improve this?
Yep.
What are your ideas? They will open up and they will tell you. And some of them are really good ideas. Some of them are not so good ideas. It's throw it at the wall, see what it looks like, try things.
And they may not have a good idea, but you get a perspective.
Yeah. Well, how do they see it?
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't as bad as you thought it was.
Exactly. Yeah. They might have seen it in a different light.
Right. Exactly.
And it just is one of those things where it has to catch on.
That's right.
But you also make it, because you're asking for their advice, you make it comfortable for them to tell you flat out whatever it is they think. This sucked here.
Yeah.
How about we do this?
Right.
Or my team said they didn't really like this. When you make it comfortable and you ask people for their opinions, and you're not like, no, shooting them down or getting offended because they brought up something that you may be attached to.
Well, I've seen people do that. And I probably did that when I was younger too. And that leads to the path of doing everything yourself in your business for the rest of your life. So there's no freedom there.
Yeah, that's that risk-reward factor, right?
Exactly.
You got to give up to...
That's right. Exactly.
So we've said the word core values quite a bit, and I know that's a major piece of your organization. What are your core values, and how really does that relate not only to your culture, but even selling to clients?
So the core values that we have are commitment, hard work, individual responsibility, respect, and professionalism. And, core values are things that some companies just put up on the wall, and that's the end of it. And we don't do that. We try to live by those every day. We sell based on those. We evaluate potential partnerships with new customers based on the core values. We hire new employees centered around the core values. We reward, we discipline, we terminate, all centered around those core values. And when I say we terminate, sometimes we terminate customers that don't fit the core values. We've had to do that before. So not everybody's a great fit, and sometimes they're a great fit for somebody else. So it's sort of there's in business, there's a million things that come at you every day and can really make you go sideways and lose focus of what you're trying to accomplish. So the core values are the things that we have to go back to that sort of help us guide the ship every day. It's this little rudder on the back end of the ship, but it's very powerful.
He's making me think that as an entrepreneur, there are so many decisions, and you can get distracted very, very quickly. You can go down a rabbit hole very, very quickly. But when you have those core values, it's kind of like your compass.
Yes.
It keeps you on track. Mm-hmm. If it comes down to a decision here or here, does it fit the core values?
That's right.
If it comes down to a person, do they fit the core values?
That's right. We have this little tool, right person, right seat, that was a tool offered through EOS. And we've used that before. Sometimes we have a great person and they're just in the wrong seat. And so how do we know that? Well, we put them through that sort of assessment, I guess, of how do they fit the core values? Do they match up to each of these? Do they match up to most of them? Do they match up to maybe just a couple? You can determine whether somebody's really a good fit from a core values perspective and they belong with your company. Then you have to determine what's the seat that they can best sit in. What do they do well? What's their strength? And it's not good to put someone in a seat where they're not going to perform well. So there's some evaluation there that has to be done. And core values, our core values of hard work, commitment, respect, all those things, those apply to us in a certain way in our world. They're different for different people, for different entrepreneurs and different businesses in their own world.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned something that may be radical to some people, and I think it's so important, is firing clients.
Oh,
or terminating clients.
Yeah. No, it's really difficult. I'm not sure which is worse, to deal with a really difficult employee or a really difficult client. It might be harder to deal with a really difficult client because they're paying you.
They're paying you,
and you're like,
and the customer's always right.
But they're paying us. Do we really want to let them go? But you have to understand that they're also sucking the life out of you and the life out of your managers and the life out of your employees at the job site. And sometimes you just have to cut bait and figure out some other way.
And it's even in that sales process. And I've said this over and over again, the people that will beat you up the most on price are typically the worst clients because they want to pay the low bargain price, but they want the escalade of services. They want to be taken care of the best, and they think they're the most important. It's crazy how those things correlate.
Right. Yeah, this guy taught me something years ago in the janitorial supply business. He said, you can pay now or you can pay later. And usually later is more. So, you can't have high quality service without paying for it. So, and there's that whole thing with respect as a core value. Our industry has notoriously been subject to, not all customers, but a fair amount of customers in our business sort of look down their nose on cleaners. But think about the condition of a facility every morning at 8 a.m. if the cleaners weren't there. And especially, the things that have happened in our health world over the last couple of years, and cleaners not being present to take care of things. So respect is a big deal for us, and it goes two ways. The customer respect our staff, the staff respect the customer, and sometimes it's difficult to get staff to understand living in the customer's shoes, and you have to understand that the customer's dealing with a lot of things on a daily basis as well. Cleaning is just one of the things on their plate. So if they blow up at you for some reason that seems pretty petty, well, give them a pass. Unless it happens too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Then it becomes whether or not there's a real partnership there. Right.
Yeah, and you mentioned partnership. You have what's called a quality partner, and whether they fit that partnership or not.
Yeah, and the overwhelming majority of our customers fit that, and there's always one or two here where we're scratching our head, going, "Is this the right fit?" But we have less and less of those question marks as the years go by. You learn some hard lessons.
Yeah. I remember reading your mission statement of helping companies be able to grow personally and professionally. And it's one of those things you think, okay, a cleaner, how are you doing that? But it makes so much sense in the sense when somebody walks into your building with the condition of it is that's the first impression.
Yeah.
And how much is on their plate as far as stress goes if they have to either hire an employee. We talked about the problem right now of hiring employees. What does that look like for a company that's to hire?
So we had a discussion this morning with a customer that was being tasked with trying to cut back in some costs. He used to have the cleaning staff in-house till about 8 years ago, when that was sort of unraveling for him for a number of different reasons. And we came in and we were sort of providing partial services for him while he still had his in-house staff. And so we sort of segued into full-time when the in-house staff disappeared. And there's just a ton of things on the customer's plate. And if we're able to provide them with the contractual service that we've agreed to, and they can go home at night and know that things are going to be taken care of, doors are going to be locked, restrooms are going to be clean when they walk in the morning. Their boss is not going to be jumping down their back about, what happened to this or what happened to that.
Yeah.
Then, they can tackle their day with the right frame of mind and get things accomplished that they need to get accomplished. So there's those opportunities for development for our customers, and we really have to look at it that way. We're there to clean the building, but we're there to serve the customer. But then the other partnership is with the staff, because we've learned that if we invest in the staff and we support the staff and we're there for the staff in the good times and the bad, then the customer is going to be happy. Happy staff, happy customer.
Well, and you look at it, you mentioned it earlier, janitorial work, it's not glamorous.
No, it's pretty messy at times.
Even if you look at, and I think this probably ties into quality partners, but how do the clients take care of or do they treat the cleaners with respect? And, so it's one of those things that's not glamorous. How do you make people feel like,
COVID has helped that.
Yeah.
In the last couple of years. But outside of that, there are things that we do. For instance, there's a nationwide thing that we participate in. It's called Thank Your Cleaner Day. And it's in October. I think it's like third Monday in October, something like that. And so we blast out to all of our customers, hey, next Monday is Thank Your Cleaner Day. And so we'll get customers that'll reply back to us, hey, what's my cleaner's name? Or, I know they only started here 6 months ago or whatever. And they want to know information about them. And then they want to know what they can do. Should I just give them a card? Hey, you can give them a card with $5 in it, or you can give them a Starbucks gift card, or you can give them $100. We don't care.
Yeah.
It's just, and so we have a lot of customers that do that. And then they see also the continuity or the consistency of the same staff in their building all the time. So that's a huge deal when they see retention, which goes to consistency and quality service, a feeling of ownership. The customers really, we have some staff that have been like, the customers have like taken ownership of those staff. We can't take those people out of that building. So they belong there.
Yeah.
They belong to the customer, and the customer is going to let us know, which is cool.
That is cool. That's cool when they can form that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What advice would you give to somebody that's in that first, second generation family business on how to scale their business?
So there's nothing wrong with, well, I would say read everything you can get your hands on in terms of how to scale. Listen to everything you can possibly listen to. Find a mentor, I guess you can call it what you want, but there's a couple of different businesses that we have keyed in on, and the owners of those businesses, and watched how they've done it. And so think about models that allow you to scale. You doing everything is not scalable. And so for different industries, there are different models of scalable success. And so you just have to be open to that and know that in the end, you are going to have to let go of duties, and you are going to have to surround yourself with people that you want to work with and that can get the job done. And again, it might not be exactly how you want it, but it's getting done with success. And then, in terms of generations, going to the next generations with scalability, as I'm kind of in this spot where
I was hoping this was going to be the answer to the question. So
the next generation is coming. I've got 4 boys, and 2 of them are in the business now. And they've sort of come up in the business as, helping dad do this or do that. And, but making sure that the boundaries are clear. And just because dad started the business in a certain way, or dad took over the business from grandpa in a certain way, 30 years ago, doesn't mean it's going to be the same for the future generations. The business today isn't what it was 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so establishing the boundaries in those roles, and understanding that family and business, while they always intersect on certain levels, it's good to be able to learn how to compartmentalize. And then, when you find those scalable models, in my case, the next set of boys, the generation coming in, they see that success that's happened, and they have a certain respect for, this is how this has happened. I can see the changes that have happened along the way over the last 20 years I've sort of watched. And if they aren't willing to be humble and accept, that there are parameters, well, there are other people to fill the roles. Maybe just because they're family doesn't mean they belong in the business.
And you say that, but you really do mean that.
I really do mean it, right?
And I know I get to work intimately with Danny, and he's extremely talented, but I think some of the really cool stuff is his story. And
he's got a story.
And he had to learn things the really tough way.
Yeah.
That he had to learn that you're replaceable.
Yes. He, you probably heard some of this, but he came up, he's the oldest, he's going on 28. And so he came up, through childhood watching dad do a lot of different things, and he served in some operations roles, and he made some not so wise choices at certain times, and he had to leave the family business, and he had to leave the household and go figure out things on his own, which is, just the way it goes with some kids. And so he had some hard choices. He got banged up out there in the world a little bit, and came back and saw the value in what was being created around the company and the family. I wanted to be a part of that again. And so he is a part of it. He's a very big part of it right now. He's, beating the bushes out there every day and bringing in new sales and learning a lot along the way. As he's in this sales role where he's got a base plus commission. So it's to his advantage to go out and sell as much as possible, but you can't just do that. You have to understand that there are other sections or other departments or other divisions in the business that are impacted by the actions that you take and the jobs that you sell. And he's very aware of that.
Yeah.
And so it's good to see.
I think that's a huge unique and a huge asset for him, is that he has a couple things. He has been in all the aspects of the business. When he came back to the business, he was cleaning.
He was working midnights.
He was working midnights. He was cleaning. So he, as a salesperson, as a family member, as you know, he knows what it's like to be down there cleaning.
Right.
He knows that operations piece. And so I think that is a huge unique. And we talked from the beginning of, you know, when you're setting expectations for clients, you know, you're not creating something that doesn't exist, or you're not selling out your operations team.
That's right. You got to be able to perform.
He has a great communication with the operations team because he understands what it's like to be there.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that just comes with time and humility and knowing that, you know, hey, somebody else has been down this road already. And so you're just going to have to step back and like let them teach you a few things. And that never really stops. You know, if you stop learning, then you need to get off the boat.
Exactly. I'm so glad you'd mentioned the third generation, because I think that is so huge. I think for other family businesses, but just even any mentor that has come along and has pushed me has been uncomfortable at first, right? I've had bosses that have pushed me and I didn't like what they said, you know, but then as I'm reflective, as I sit and think about it, it changed my life. And so I know that Danny probably didn't love the decision at the time, but as he sits and talks about it now, I know it's a major driver to who he is today.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he's just one of those kids that I think, you know, he's just, and there are kids out there like this. They've got to figure it out on their own. And, you know, it's real world experience. There's no college textbook that teaches certain things. So
you've got to learn the hard way.
That's right.
And even I used to think like, okay, I've done a lot of dumb stuff. I've made a lot of mistakes and I've paid for it. And so if I can mentor people to avoid those mistakes, but as much as I tell my son or I tell people that I've mentored, sometimes they've got to go learn it themselves.
Yeah, no, right. There are those that will learn. And I find myself in this spot now, and I really enjoy this, is where having been in business for the better part of 30 years and so I have the business experience and the industry experience. I really enjoy helping the others in our company, that whether it's managers or sales or talking to finance or whatever it is, just helping them through kind of the hurdles or offering the advice that needs to get them through the day or through the week. And, you know, there are some that will listen and avoid the mistakes, and there are some that will not listen, and mistakes happen.
Yep.
And then they get through it that way. So
those ones are always my favorite. They're not my favorite, but it's my favorite when you've had to let go of that person. I've had so many people that I've had to terminate over the years, and I'll give up. Like, I'll tell them, this is exactly what, you know, moving into your next situation, look out for these things.
Right.
And to get those messages back several years later of, thank you so much for being real with me. Thank you so much for kicking my ass daily and telling me where I need to be. Yeah. I didn't get it then. I didn't have the maturity then to listen. But now
I got it now.
I get it, and my company loves me, or I've got promoted, or I'm growing in this company, and I'm killing my team. You know, I'm killing everybody else on the sales floor. It's
right.
Stuff that they finally
everything that came along. Oh yeah, Jason, he was right about that.
They just weren't ready to hear it then.
Right.
You know, it's everybody matures and thinks differently, and it's even, you know, when I was younger, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah, I read that too. In fact, I just handed that book off to one of the boys yesterday. I was like going through a stack of books. It's like, all right, these have been on the shelf for the last 20 years. I've read them all.
Yeah.
So I put this little Post-it on the dining room table. I said, these are free or they're going to donate. A couple of them went out the door last night.
Awesome. Incredible book.
Yeah.
When I read it in my 21, 22-year-old perspective, it made me a defiant employee, because I thought, I'm smarter than you. You know, I got a different perspective of like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm smarter than you.
Right.
I wasn't thinking I need to learn from these people. And so I was going to work with an arrogance, and I wasn't learning at that point. And I had to fall hard a few times and realize, if I don't learn from these people, how could I ever own my own business?
Right.
You know, if I don't even learn good, bad, or indifferent from what's going on, I'm just going to open up a business and be so successful, you know, or I'm going to lead a team and grow people. How would I ever do that?
I mean, it's every business that you're in, it's people, and we're all flawed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like So if you can't figure out how to work with people, then good luck being in business.
Leadership, sales,
Yeah.
anything, being in a relationship.
Yes.
These are skills that you need to learn.
Right.
Period. And like you said, at the end of the day, it's people, whether they're your employees,
Yeah.
whether they're your clients,
Or your neighbors,
their neighbors,
or your spouse.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
and again, even getting referrals from people for as far as jobs go, that happens if you're out at Starbucks getting coffee every morning and you come in and you're cheery and you're happy and you represent that you're a good person and people want to be around you. They're gonna, hey, are you hiring?
right.
Hey, I know somebody that'd want to work for you. These different conversations. But if you come in and it's like, who would want to work for that guy?
Grumpy and swearing at the person on the phone. And
It's just knowing at the end of the day, when you treat people like they're people, you're going to attract people into your life.
Right. And you don't have to, nobody has to be fake about it. You just be yourself, and if you're experiencing a measure of success, be thankful for it, because not everybody has that success, and project your thankfulness to those that are around you, because they're the reason that the success is happening. So,
yep. And that's where the attaboys come in the backs.
Yeah, exactly. So
encourage the good behavior.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You talked about Danny coming on, and you talk about growing the company. I know you'd mentioned to me, like, he's gotten these relationships and brought in sales that are going to that next level, taking that company to that next level. Tell me what does that look like?
Well, so, I'm in my mid-50s now, and you get to a certain point in life and you get in a rut, I guess you would say, or you get a little tired. And so even with a certain amount of success, it's easy to just sort of sit back and go, all right, well, things are okay.
Yep.
And you don't feel the same drive. And I think that anybody that's been in business for 30 years has been at that spot before. And, whether you stay at that spot, whether you break through it, or whether you succumb to it in a negative way, different people do different things. So, when it was clear that Danny wanted to come back into the business, and now his brother's back in as well, Matt. And it was clear that Danny was headed to sales. He needed to spend some time in operations first, but when he got into sales, he was going after the big fish. And that's just who he is. And he was going after things that, were manufacturing facilities where we're servicing 5, 6, 7 days a week, 2, 3 shifts around the clock, anywhere from 5 people to 10 people on a shift. And so we've made great strides in the last year in terms of reaching a lot of different goals that we've wanted to reach, not just in revenue or profit, but, in implementing a profit-sharing plan now, and implementing an employee assistance program, or different pieces of that program that we're unfolding now. So there's a lot of things along the way that we want to do in meeting our 10-year goal, which is end of calendar year 2030. And Danny's sales efforts will be a big part of that. We've got some other things that will probably contribute to that too. I think we'll probably look at some acquisition over the next couple of years, but you got to be positioned right to find the right partner for that as well. Mm-hmm. So we're excited for what Danny's bringing in the door, and the different kinds of jobs, because those are things that I probably never would have done. But he's new blood.
Yeah. He looks at it differently.
Yeah. He looks at it differently. So,
and then he comes in and he starts building the company.
Yeah, and there's a tension there that happens, but it's a healthy tension. He's great guns, go, go, go. And then, like, there are others that are like, whoa, 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 hang on. And so that's just, but it is very healthy, and that's what you have to have in business.
Yeah.
Got to have both.
You got to have both, for sure. And then, again, to constantly... You look at maybe family business structures, and again, first generation usually starts it, second generation takes it to the next level, right. And then third generation.
It either goes great gangbusters, or it implodes.
Yep. And what I see Populist setting up is it going gangbusters, because you've done that right.
Yeah. I've talked about this with John, my current partner, and it's always been our business has always been a business of, at its core, two families. So there's the Eller family and the Wagner family. And we have been lifelong friends. The two families have been very close with each other for the 40 some years. And so we feel very strongly about the next generation and the success of the next generation with both families. But part of that success is rooted in some patience. And knowing that no matter how tired one may get in the current generation, and before handing it over to the next generation or of both families, you have to just understand when they're ready. And you can't do it too soon. And it has to be just a little piece here, a little piece there. And John and I are both committed to keeping our finger on the pulse for as long as we need to. Mm-hmm. It could be another 5 years. It could be another 10 years. It could be longer than that. I have no intentions of retiring. My role will just change. And I want to hang around and be a pain in the backside for as long as possible.
Talk about back in my day.
Right. Well, I would have done it be quiet, Dad. So,
what's one of your favorite stories from the early days growing up in Populist?
Oh, well, when I was a kid, there was one building. This might seem a little weird. It's probably not a favorite story, but it sticks out in my mind. So I was tagging along with my dad on a Sunday once. He had to clean this office building in Ann Arbor. And I was with him, and so was my younger brother. We were together, and we were goofing off in this building. And we knew we weren't supposed to be goofing off. And we ended up in this wrestling match, like in this office area. And I flipped my head back and smacked my head against the corner of a desk. Ended up in the hospital, stitches, and a really ticked off father. So it's probably what wasn't one of my favorite, but it was one of the most memorable. And then, I don't know, just my kids are always like, you don't have any good stories about your past. Well, I don't know. It's just, I'm not known for the dramatic side. Now, Danny, the other hand, he can share a lot of good stories.
He's got great stories.
No, he's got some stories. I went through college, working late nights and working till 6 o'clock in the morning, stripping and waxing some floor somewhere, and had a lot of good connections with, you remember the Fantastic Sam's hair salons? Yeah. So I had like 30 of those hair salons that I would do a route to every week, polishing their floors. And then, just the little things like hiring on a guy to help me, and then hiring on the second guy to help me. And then how we transitioned out of my dad and John had a major account down at Detroit Metro Airport. We cleaned and serviced all of the advertising throughout the whole airport. This was in the 80s. So the big car manufacturers, GM, Ford, and Chrysler, they would all have show cars in the airport, staged. We had to clean those. And you'd have the kids walking around, putting their handprints all over after they had their face in their ice cream cone, and smears everywhere on the car. And so we would keep those cars clean. We would keep the showcases clean. We would keep all the advertising displays and the signage clean and maintained throughout the whole airport. I had that job for a long time, and then my brother and I used to work it on the weekends while we were in college playing hockey. We'd come home from a hockey road trip. We'd go to work on the weekends. But then getting to a point where we actually let that job go, that was a huge change in our company, because that was the anchor job for both families. And we were at a point where we knew that just wasn't the right fit anymore, and we had enough to replace it.
Wow.
And so that was quite a monumental change in the business. And so there's been things like that along the way.
Before, if you would have lost it, the business
my God.
is done.
Right. We'd have been like standing in the food line. We'd have been starving.
That's incredible. That's got to be a really cool moment.
Yeah. So still to this day, when I drive down to Metro Airport, and they just demolished the old Smith Terminal here, like in the last 12 to 24 months, the old South Terminal, what they used to call the South Terminal, the big blue building, still driving through there as they were demolishing it. I remember just the memories thinking back, like, I used to clean the car. It was parked right there.
That's so crazy.
Right. Used to clean that showcase. It was parked right there.
It was the whole showcase was parked right there.
Right.
Now it's gone.
Yeah. It's all gone. It's so different.
Okay. So you've mentioned a few times music and sports.
Yes.
What does music and sports then mean to your family?
So music and sports. So the music goes back to my dad and my mom. They were both trained classical musicians, both pianists, and my dad was a composer. And then on the Wagner side of the family, John was a writer and a poet, and Ruth Ann, his wife, was a opera singer. And don't let her ever tell you anything other than that she was phenomenal. So, and still has a really good voice. So music was part of it was in our DNA growing up. You know, on my side of the family, me, my brother, my sister, we grew up in music. I went to college on a trombone performance scholarship. My sister went through on a scholarship. My brother went through on a scholarship, all in music. And so the other side of that was sports. So my dad was also an avid hockey fan, and he was an avid Detroit Red Wing fan as a kid. And so, you know, we grew up just married to the Detroit Red Wings, you know, it was everything Red Wings. And so, when I was growing up, you know, 10, 15, 16, 17 years old, I was playing hockey. And then when I got to college at Eastern, I played hockey there. I was 4.5 years on that team. I was captain of the team for the last 3 years. And so that there was a lot going on there. So music and hockey, music and sports don't often go together.
They don't often go together.
No,
that's why we haven't talked about the story. So that's why I wanted to ask
But the music was always a very, very serious part of our lives, and it wasn't going to be any other way with the parents that we had. And we were homeschooled back in the day when homeschooling was unheard of. And today it's very popular, but back then it was like nobody did it. And,
I heard a rumor of Ruth Ann was your.
Oh yeah,
your
Ruth
teacher.
Ann was one of my teachers. Yeah. And then
The
she
very
taught.
first meeting I attended,
right.
she was like, "I used to teach him when he."
Yeah. No, I know. It's like, I mean, it's family. So, and then we did the same thing with our kids. You know, they grew up my wife was a piano performance major at Eastern as well. So we met there, and then we married. We had 4 boys, and they all came up pretty much the same path: music and sports. Except the youngest, he's a ballet dancer,
Which kind of ties. It's like the
it's
performing
the arts thing.
Yeah.
Yes. And so there's been a strong focus on both of those. So sports, music, hockey, music.
When your son Matt just did something awesome in hockey.
Yeah, Matt. So Danny's next brother down. So there's 4 of them. There's Danny, Matt, Michael, and Luke. So Matt went to Adrian College, and they won the NCAA D3 championship, national championship, at the Herb Brooks Arena in Lake Placid, New York, at the end of March. So that was kind of a storybook season for him because it was his senior year. He's team captain, and they won 31 games in a row. They lost their first game of the season in October, and they didn't lose another game the entire season after.
That's incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah. So he's in the business now too, and so he and Danny they're like attached at the hip, even when they don't want to be. So.
And again, it comes down to that leadership, because you mentioned you were captain at EMU.
Yeah.
Matt was captain at Adrian.
Yeah.
Danny was telling me how he was captain of his sports team.
Yeah, this just kind of runs in the family, and leadership it's a hard thing because you're responsible. And for a long, long time, I always felt like nobody understands what it's like to be a business owner. You feel like you're out on an island and you can't explain yourself to anyone, not even your spouse.
Yeah.
At times, it's just like you try to talk through certain things and you just like, people don't get it. And I don't say that in a way of like putting yourself on a pedestal or anything like that. It's just that until you've lived in the world where you're responsible for everything that goes on around you, making payroll, paying the taxes, paying the insurance, making sure that the customers are happy, understanding that all the customers are different, understanding that the employees who have a certain way of life and a customer who has a different way of life are in the same building and have to live with each other, and you have to pull that off, you know? So it's kind of like in the music world, the conductor of an orchestra. Mm-hmm. So there's a great book out there called The Maestro, I think it's called. And it's a business book.
Okay.
But, the conductor of an orchestra stands up there on the podium and has to bring 60 to 80 different people together who are all doing their own individual part. They're all playing their own line, but it's to the greater good of the piece of music that's being performed for the audience.
That's incredible.
So the conductor is responsible for the success of it all.
And you're right. So how many employees do you have right now?
I think we're about 120.
120. So at the end of the day, you're responsible for 120 people just within your company. And then, like you said, your clients. And
yeah, so there's a guy, his name is Dave Feidner. He's an EOS implementer in the Metro Detroit area. About a year ago, he said to me, and I had never thought of it this way, so I'm bringing this up as hopeful words of encouragement for anybody that hears or watches this podcast down the road in terms of employers. So he said, how many customers do you have? I said, I don't know, maybe 100. He says, and how many people work at those job sites? I said, I don't know, maybe anywhere from 20 to 300. He says, all right, so every one of those people there has some sort of extension of family, spouse, kids, whatever the case may be. So, and he worked through this simple but not so simple math problem of like the number of people that we impact on the customer side.
Yeah.
And then he said, how many employees do you have?
Oh my God.
And then he worked through that same.
How many kids do they have? What's
right?
Oh, wow.
Grandkids and all this stuff. And he says, do you realize how many people you're having an impact on every day? I hadn't thought about it that way. So it's just, I say that just because, we all get to these spots in the life of business where it's just sometimes you feel like you're just getting beat up, but you have to look at it in a different light, and this is a way of looking at it in the positive or the negative impact that you can have. Choose which one you're going to, which path you're going to go down.
That's incredible. That's an incredible way to end this conversation. That thought right there, let that sink in.
Yeah.
Let that sink in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful.
It is powerful.
So, Mike, man, thank you so much for driving down here.
Yeah, it was great.
I
enjoyed it.
I know you were watching the LinkedIn conversation Danny and I were having back, and like, no.
I think something's coming my way soon.
Email arrives.
Looks like I'm getting tapped. I'll just wait and see what happens here. Sure enough, the email shows up.
A couple hours later, there it is.
Right.
Boom.
So, no, it's been great. I enjoyed this.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.